So the universe card in the tarot cards is the 21st card, but it's also the 22nd card because of the Zero Fool card. The universe as the end of completion. So it's the completion number, the number 22, a symbol of the zenith of development, the achieved goal. So when I started looking into the Draco constellation, lo and behold, there's this beautiful cat's eye nebula, which happens to look like two circles joined together, which creates the Vesica Piscis, which is like the eye shape, and then you get the pupil and the iris in the middle of this. So this nebula is extremely important in ancient history. Now, this Vesica Piscis represents a doorway. And we also see this depicted with Christ being in the middle of this shape, or the Buddha. So this shape is very important. It is the doorway to freedom. When I started learning about this nebula, I realized that it had significance because it's never moved for thousands of years. It's the position of the elliptical pole station marker is essentially permanent on a timescale of human history, as opposed to the pole star, which changes. The pole star changes, which changes every few thousand years. The pole star changes every few thousand years, but this nebula has never changed. Here is showing the position of where it is, and it's between the two dippers. We got the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper, and the Draco constellation is right in between. And this is very much at the North Pole. It's very close to the North Pole because the Little Dipper, the last star in the Little Dipper, is the North Pole, is Polaris. So it is very, very close to the proximity of the North Pole. I showed this in my last video. This is the North Pole, and where this kind of vacuum anti-gravity phenomenon is supposed to happen for the Golden Age. And the red zone is really the dangerous zone, and things are not going to be pleasant in that zone. And there's some ancient anthropologists have discovered flash freezing of mammoths and stuff, and so that's what happens in that zone. The other zone, it's more like things will just float, like the movie It. You too will float. You don't want to float. You want to stay grounded, so not to go outside when this event happens. And there's supposed to be no light. It's supposed to be dark. It's supposed to happen at midnight, and so some people might go outside to go see it, so it's not a good idea. So in the Chadwell glossary, when they're talking about the Cat's Eye Nebula, the numbers 3, 6, and 9 end up showing up in the Draco constellation. So I started thinking about this Cat's Eye Nebula and where else was cats considered very important, and it brought me back to Egyptian history where they were worshiping the cat. The word MIW is to literally mean to see. So it is the Cat's Eye Nebula. I did the gematria on these letters. It comes to 13, 9, and 23, and which adds up to, breaks down to 9. So here we have the cats are also associated with the Eye of Ra. So they were worshiping the eye as the cat. That's why it's called the Cat's Eye Nebula. And the goddess Isis, which is the Statue of Liberty, which she represents Isis. And every cat was considered a demigod. And whoever killed a cat in Egypt was condemned to death. So that you can see how the importance of the cat was. And then when this ancient knowledge was considered to be evil, the cat became evil as well. So, they just wanted to shut down this information. They don't want us to know that this event is going to happen, because then they can harvest your soul back into the loop again. So the whole way of getting freedom is to know this is going to happen and to know how to absorb this energy. The whole cat's eye is in our faces. We see the all-seeing eye everywhere. We don't really understand what it means, but now I'm starting to put the pieces together to understand what it exactly means. And there's a band called the Cat Empire, and of course it's the cat's eye. It's pretty much in our faces. You just have to know what you're looking for. Then there's the movie The Cat's Eye. Of course, it's only one cat's eye. It's Stephen King. All his movies are relating to this event, if you really look into his work. When I looked up the word pussy for pussycat to see where the root word came from, it also meant rabbit. They also used it in World War II as a slang to take advantage of cloud cover, jumping from cloud to cloud to shadow a potential victim to avoid recognition. So it's like it's hidden. And I also think it's pretty funny that the word pussycat is used for a woman's body parts, and also a snake is used for a man's body parts. So whoever created this place that we are in had quite a sense of humor. So the Cat's Eye Nebula being the feminine, and the Draco constellation, which is the snake, being the masculine. So the meaning of hieroglyphs is the words of the gods. Philae was a town on a confluence of two rivers as well in Egypt, and the emperor Theodosius I closed all the pagan temples down, which were deciphering these hieroglyph symbols. Now, the hieroglyphs for the word for cat is M-I-W, which is mew, for the sound of the cat, I guess. And the M is also depicted as the owl, there's wisdom. And also, it's used for milk. So that's weird. It has two meanings, the M, the pictures. And the flowering reed is the I, and the W is the chickadee, which makes the whole word for cat. The chickadee was also used for that horse and rider star for the Micmac Native Americans. They used the word chickadee for that star, binary star system as well. Here's another D5, which is the all-seeing eye as well. And it can be either to look, to see, or to be blind. And I'm assuming that's where the term comes from for eyes that can see. The hieroglyphs with the IR is the I, which I find interesting for Ireland. Ireland is IR, so the I. And we know all the Celtic ancient history had all this wisdom knowledge. So the Ian, IN. So is that the Aryan race? Is the I race that understands this I, what the I means? Here we have Hebrew to English, and we have the Yohiva, and the IR again is the I, which ends up being the O, but ends up being the Y. So we're back to the Y symbol, and Va means pillar, support. You know, the pillars of light is the Va, but then that's a Y as well. So yeah, it's interesting how it all kind of moves around and changes through different time periods, but some of it stays the same. The Yodi, you know, it's like in the movie, what is it in the Star Wars movie, Yodi? Yeah, that's where that comes from. Yodi Vahi, but then you have the numbers 6 and 5 and 10. So that ends up adding up to 21, you know, the universe card in the tarot deck. But then you have the Yodi Va, you know, Vahi is the two he's, it ends up becoming 26, which ends up adding up to 8. So yeah, it's interesting how, you know, the forever 21, you always see 21. And then the deciphering of I am, spoke, 21 spoke. Somebody had done this wheel with the Hebrew texts in the biblical text, and she's got here I am equals 21. Yep, it's all about the number 21 and 22. You know, the end of the universe, the end of this time, and going into the golden age. So here is a site that's basically breaking down numbers and the Bible, and you know, the 21st or 22 letters in the Hebrew language, and then I think the spoke wheel goes to 22 as well. So here they're talking about the 21st letter meaning to burn, which is enlightenment, right? Which is it has to do with being able to handle the fire. The name of the 21st letter literally means tooth, so it's you're getting bitten, you know, which is makes me think of the serpent biting you. The name is pronounced like sheen, which is the S, you know, the S wisdom, the serpent wisdom knowledge. It's with the S, and it's coming to be like a sharp teeth gnawing. Anyhow, it ends up being the W, which makes me always think of W. It should be double V, but they call it W. So there's this letter W has significance in I found it really fascinating that it means fire and to burn. I was like, whoa. Yeah, so there was 22. So the 22nd one is Tav, which ends up being the cross, which is happens to be the last letter in the Hebrew alphabet is the cross. So, you know, the mark, you get the mark, denotes the mark, this sign or cross. That I find interesting. I'm just wondering now when they say you get the mark, is it when you get the bite, when you take on the burn, you get the mark. So here is really blew me away. This we have the Star of David, and then the numbers, because when I'm thinking number 21, I'm going, okay, what's 21? It's 3 times 7 is 21, and then she had it here with the number 37. Ends up being a really sacred number where it mirrors number 73. Now, if you take this Star of David, if you count all the numbers, the red dots, they end up being 55, okay, and inside of it. So the number 37 means wisdom. So everything, even the biblical text, everything, the numbers all relate to the sacred geometry, which is what I always believed. Everything kind of adds together, everything emerges together. There's no one is one and one is that. Everything is kind of that we've been taught to believe is everything separate. It's not separate. It all comes back to this ancient hidden knowledge that is being kept from us. And one of the things that started my awakening was Trump's inauguration. He was 70 years old on his 7th month and his 7th day. So that was like, why are they doing that? Now I know why. 21. Yeah, so we were talking about the number 55 before with the tarot cards all adding up. And it means everything. It means all. So that whole number has, sacred meaning, means the light. It also means the bride, the spouse. It's like, it's crazy. The significance of that number, 55. And then that doubled ends up being 110. Now, the phase translates to sure foundation, simple duplication with the number value of 222. So this is where I started to get to the number 222, the year 2022, because of this 22 number, and because it's part of the Hebrew language being the last letter, and because it's in the tarot cards, and I ended up doing this whole deciphering on all the numbers. Here's my graph. I'm going to try to walk you through it because I know it's a lot of numbers and a lot of information that can be a little overwhelming. I just did a little graph here all about the alphabet and how they use this coding. If you notice, the Z is at number 8, and then the numbers are backwards, bringing it down to A is number 1. But you also see it as you times it, it ends up, when you bring these numbers down, say the letter N, is 13 times 8. If you times it all by 8, it ends up being 104, but 104 breaks down to 5. The reason everything's timed by 8 is because 8 is infinity. It's the loop that we're in. It's the Ouroboros, the dragon eating its own tail. When I'm saying that they use it, it's just used like through the news, through the media. A lot of times when they talk about numbers, it's relating to letters, and it's all coded, which is really hard to get your head around. But when you start to understand the code language, you start to see that the politicians and the media are talking in code quite often. Now, here is the number graph. Now, this is where it gets a little bit intense. What they use is, it's called Theosophic addition. So that means wisdom, because Sophia is wisdom in pagan occult knowledge. She's basically wisdom. So the tarot cards are interesting in the way they're using this same edition. I don't know how to use tarot cards. I don't know anything about it. I'm just looking at the numbers and basically how they relate to the stars. I don't know anything about this knowledge of how they're using them to place them. But if you add 1 to 9 and plus 10, it ends up being 55. So there's our sacred number, 55. It's the base number from 1 to 10. 20 is 155. Now I took the numbers all the way up to 222, since that's our number for the year 2022. And interesting, it ends up being the total of that number ends up breaking down to number 17, which is cute. I just found that really funny. Then the date of the winter solstice at the midnight hour, 12 o'clock, it's 12/12/21. So it's 333. These break down to 3. Then the number 2022 breaks down to 222. So we have 9 and 6. So we have our sacred numbers there, the 369, which ends up adding or multiplying to 666. Okay, so 666 ends up being 18, which brings us to 9. Now, the Freemasons were using the G is the seventh letter. It's the seventh phi squaring of the circle. If you look at some of my other videos, squaring of the circle brings us to the seventh ring. Ariana Grande is singing about that, the seventh ring, so seventh circle. And the death card is the 13th card. Now, if you understand the Fibonacci sequence, I'm going to explain Fibonacci sequence. It's basically the golden ratio, a spiral. This is just it showing in a straight format here. But my next graph is showing how that all works and how we get these numbers. And they're just adding, like 1 and 1 you add together, you get a 2. You add the 2 and the 1 together, the previous number, you get the 3. You add the 3 and the 2 together, you get the 5. It just goes up into that. I added it all up to the 26th point because the 26th letter in the alphabet, and that number ends up coming out to 1111, which is no coincidence. The 26 is the letter Z. Z in alchemic symbol is gold, for the golden age. It's the last letter in the alphabet. Now here, if you take F8 and F9 together, which is 21 and 34, 8 and 9 equals 17 Q, it ends up being 55. Okay, so everything works out. 3 times 7 is 21. It's the Trump tarot card, the universe card. And then 37 times 6 ends up being 222. That's where I get the year 2022 from. Because I showed you on the Star of David, the number 37 and 73, they're mirroring each other. But if you times it by 6, which is the sacred number of creation, it ends up coming to 222. So I really find this hard to believe that this, isn't going to pan out like this, because the numbers are all saying that. Everything to number 9 is, number 9 to me is 9 mirroring itself is the number 6. It's the symbol of the yin and the yang. So here's the Fibonacci sequence in golden ratio, which is the spiral, which is golden ratio. Now the two little purple, the purple and white one is the 1 and the 1. Now next one would be the 2. And then the turquoise one would be 3. And then we get to the 5. But if you notice, it's cubed, right? It's 5 squares up, 5 squares down. And these numbers, end up being 25. But so yeah, you can add them like that as well. But what I notice is when you add them like that, this ends up coming to 54, which equals 9. So how I got that number is you just add the 1 and the 1 together, then the 2, then the 3 and the 5, the 8, the 13, the 21. The total of all those numbers ends up being 54. So the year 2022 is the Blackwater Tiger. 2023 is the Blackwater Rabbit. Now what's interesting between the tiger and the dragon is the year of the rabbit. Now the year of the rabbit is also in Vietnamese, Chinese zodiac is called the year of the cat. So we got a tiger and a cat and a dragon, which I think the tiger basically relates to the lion, and the cat, is, maybe the Cat's Eye Nebula. But we also had the rabbit and the Q movement, so it's kind of like in between there. So it's all very interesting. So here we have Chinese martial arts is revealing the dragon. So it represents the spirit. And then the tiger is built to the characteristics of movement. Change forms from being a human being to a fearsome tiger. So it's like you're changing yourself and becoming stronger, I guess, through the tiger or through the lion. So tiger and dragon have a relationship. And it's like I explained before, it's female and male energy. It's also matter and spirit energy. And they're saying here it's also the form of amber, which is the burn, right? It's the burn when we take on this plasma energy through our spinal cord and up through our spinal fluid. We have to burn to open up your pineal gland to be able to handle this new age. So here we have in China, tigers were one of the 4 super intelligent creatures, along with the dragon, the phoenix, and the tortoise. Now we understand what the dragon is. It's the Draco constellation. The tiger is the Cat's Eye Nebula. The phoenix is Cygnus and becoming the double-headed phoenix, like flying out of the ashes, which was the symbology of the cathedral burning in France. They were relating it to the phoenix. And then the tortoise is the Native Americans. It relates to numbers had been on the tortoise's back, which were sacred numbers. That's their mythology. Here we're getting into the year 2022 with the Chinese years. And what I found interesting here is I didn't realize the winter solstice was the day of the first day of their year originally. They added up how many years until 2022. It was 4,720th Chinese year, which ends up breaking down to number 13, which is this, the Metatron number with the 5 platonic solids bringing us to 13. Also, the cube has 13 points to it. One of the things that popped out of my head when I was looking into this tiger year, that it is called the Dan year. Okay, so the Dan is the tribe of Dan, which to me is our DNA. It's just they've moved the letters around. This is a very important word. Now, the year 2022 is a Yang water tiger year. And if you notice, it says it ranks 33 out of the 60 stem years. So the number 33 being with Freemason happens to be one of their years. Now here's a bit of a creepy picture of the artist Marina Abramovic. She is like an occult artist, and a lot of celebrities, kind of look at her stuff and buy her stuff. And this tiger with the milk, we talked about the letter M being milk, and then we got the tiger year. So this is just something showing us it's really, this whole tiger year is really in our face, relating to the Cat's Eye Nebula. I wanted to show you how they come to this yin and yang symbol. It has to do with the winter solstice and summer solstice. So they basically put a post in the ground, 8 feet tall, and then they measured the shadow of the 2 solstices.